You can see I'm wearing my sheep shirt today because we're looking at chapter 10, the Good Shepherd. Jesus said, the fourth I am the Good Shepherd. The Jewish people would have been very well versed in that imagery of sheep and shepherd. I want you to read Ezekiel 34. It was written from exile, and Ezekiel was saying to the people that the leaders had been bad shepherds, and that's why they had gone into slavery. He prophesied that God would send a good shepherd like King David, and he also prophesied that God would bring the sheep back from exile into their own land. There are many precious promises by the shepherd for his sheep. Let's read chapter 10, verses 3 to 5. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. You see here we have two voices. One is the shepherd and one isn't. And people often say to me, I don't know if I can hear Jesus' voice or not. Someone once said, the way to notice the difference between the two voices is this. The butcher's voice is harsh, condemning, non-specific, aggressive, and leads us away from God. The shepherd's voice is gentle, non-condemning, liberating, very specific, and draws us near to God. You need to spend time at Jesus' feet, talking to him and listening, sitting and listening and learning to hear the still small voice. If it helps, write down what you think he's saying to you. The second promise is John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal, kill and destroy, but I've come to give you life, life in all its fullness. That doesn't just mean provision of everything that you need. It also means overflowing joy. But there's also, as well as the shepherd, there's the hireling. Verse 12, the hired hand is not the shepherd who owns the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and he cares nothing for the sheep. People will say to you, oh, there's lots of ways to God. And some of these other ways do have some good components. They look at meditating and doing good deeds and being kind to people. But they don't have the power. When the wolves come, you need the shepherd. You need the one who loves you, who cares for you, and has the power to protect you. And that's the third thing, the absolute protection that the shepherd gives. Verse 11 says, I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Down to verse 18, no one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. Romans 5:7-8 says, very rarely will anyone die for a good man, though for a good man someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrated his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. It wasn't by man's design that Jesus died on the cross. It was by God's design. And Jesus died for us to set us free from sin. He also protects us. When I'm talking to Sunday school children about the protection of Jesus, I do it this way. I say to them, this is you, and this is Jesus' hand. And when you give yourself to Jesus, you are protected. It says in verse 28, no one can snatch them out of my hand. And then verse 29 says, and no one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. You are doubly protected. Nothing can hurt you unless you take yourself out from under that protection. The last thing is that in verse 16 it says, I have other sheep that are not of this sheep pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and they shall be one flock and one shepherd. We are that flock. It's not just the Jews that Jesus is talking to. He's talking to us as well. When you come to Jesus and say, I want you to be my shepherd, then you can hear his voice. You can know the fullness of life that he brings. You can be completely protected by him, and he can be your shepherd and your guide. Next week, we will look at chapter 11, Death, Where is Your Sting? Think about, why did Jesus linger when his best friend was dying? Why did he weep when he knew what he was going to do? Why did the high priest say, it's better for one man to die than the whole nation to perish? Bye.